Hello, hello, hello. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Khushamdi. Ji ayanu. Goedemorgen.
Bekhair agele, ni hao, junishime, washwale, ohio genzaimus, guten morgen, hola, bonjour, привет, kaifa hal, hale shuma chotore, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaba, buna, mucho gracias, and a very amazing good morning to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning alongside the very amazing, the very stunning, the very fabulous, the very ecstatic, the very energetic Shiza Hashmi. Hello Shiza, how are you?
I am absolutely great. Just something wrong with my throat for some reason I have no idea about. But how are you doing?
Well, I think I'm doing perfectly fine, ladies and gentlemen. We hope that everybody out there is doing fine as well. We're
Yeah.
opening our windows of hope into other 46 countries. Thank you very much for bearing with us. I think that this is the 5th year that we are actually continuing with the show. Thank you very much for all the support you've actually given us throughout this time. And thank you very much, everybody, for being a part of our show.
I'm so sorry with my
I
throat.
think-
But here's my question.
Yeah, okay,
Are
but I
you
haven't answered the first question so far.
Did
so
I have a first
yeah,
question?
do you want to stay back for that?
Okay.
So I feel fine. I feel great. And yesterday I had the opportunity to actually go to the market.
That was my second question.
Because it's Ramadan. And, you know, I know that a lot of people say Ramadan in English. And yeah, that's fine with you guys. But I think I'm going to stick to Ramadan,
Yeah.
you know, because it's going to help me as well. And then I'm going to stay back with my roots as well. I mean, I don't know. I just do not feel right about saying Ramadan. But it's perfectly all right. I think it's everybody's
Yeah.
choice. And then it was so rushy. It was so rushy that I could only pick one thing. And you know
Really?
that one thing, no, not for myself, but you know,
The
I
grocery that you had
observed
to-
one
Oh,
thing,
oh.
and that is that we Pakistanis are so habitual of procrastinating that we cannot even realize, you know. So everybody was there. I thought that, you know, the entire sector was actually over there shopping. So, you know,
Really?
we have this thing of doing things at the last moment. Why? I mean, if
get
you
that.
knew that Ramadan is coming, you were actually texting everybody, oh, happy Ramadan. Why didn't you prepare in time? And I just went to the market, not for the preparation, just like that, just to see how it feels. What about you?
No, but I feel like that is the beauty of it, especially about Ramzan and then Chandrat, the Akhri Ashraf Ramzan. I mean, the markets are overflooded. I absolutely love it. And of course, it might get a little annoying for especially men because you have to drive your families over there and then wait for them till they shop, right? So
Well, I'm not the one who drives his
Oh,
family
lucky
around,
you,
but I'm the
lucky
one who
you.
gets ready, gets in his car, and go out.
Well,
Where are we
so-
going? Where are we going? Yes.
That's all great. So, ladies and gentlemen, so super excited to have Ramadan starting from tomorrow, and that is what, well, mostly we will be talking about. But other than that, Shazad,
Yeah.
you know, well, let's talk about urbanization because, of course, everyone needs to improve their living standards, right? And have a better environment to live in, a better even view to look at because that
Exactly.
definitely, you know, contributes to your mental health, the place
Yeah.
that you're living in. And
Imagine
speaking
her
of-
view while being on the show. Wow, look at it.
And speaking of, you know, urbanization, Pakistan actually has the highest urbanization rate in South Asia.
Wow.
It is 3% annually. And the United Nations says that by 2025, they're expecting about exactly half of the population of Pakistan to be urbanized.
All right.
I have no idea how we're even seeing that. I mean,
Okay, you know, obviously I'll have to speak about it too as well.
Okay.
You know, I've got a few things to share, but you know, since you've mentioned about a lot of people moving to the developed cities as well and leaving behind their rural areas, and I think that, you know, it's the need of the hour for them too as well because, you know, they have been living in an area where they might not have access to clean drinking
Right.
water, where their children might not have access to good education.
Right.
So I think everybody's thinking towards a fruitful future. But other than that, the problem, ladies and gentlemen, over here is that every year we have almost shortage of 10 million houses
Yes.
within these developed cities as well. And when we talk about these developed cities, I mean talking about Lahore and Karachi. Lahore partially planned and Karachi partially planned, where Islamabad definitely stands out because of the planning and then the management and then the system which prevails within over here. For
Right.
example, talking about CDA, there might be a lot of issues and people might be of the thought that, you know, kya keh rahi hai? But, you know, this is how it is. I think Islamabad administration is way much more better than any other city as well. Talking about Lahore or Karachi.
Yeah, yeah,
But other than that,
definitely.
there's a lot of pollution in Lahore. There's a lot of pollution in Karachi. There's a lot of pollution in Multan. I mean, wherever you go, I think that, you know,
Right.
this is one main problem within Pakistan, that we have a lot of pollution. So
Right, and Shazad, you know, Pakistan, since you're talking about the cities that are actually so polluted all over the world, and Pakistan happens to have so many of them, Pakistan itself is at 12th position in terms of environmentally
in
polluted
totality.
countries.
So imagine
Yes.
there are a lot of challenges to be faced as well. But then I think that, you know, at this point of time, I'll take advantage of the opportunity And I would like to thank our Premier, Mr. Imran Khan, as well, where he actually launched this initiative with the name of?
Well, it's about high-rise buildings and eco-friendly structures, eco-friendly architecture, environment, and then again promoting greenery, because that is what we love to do. That is what Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf loves to do, and that is what we're looking forward to.
Yeah, well, that's great. And then, you know, it's the Naya Pakistan housing scheme, ladies and gentlemen, where thousands and thousands of houses are actually built for people who belong to the, you know, downtrodden segment of the society, or probably are not so very well paid that they can actually afford a house.
Right.
We definitely wanted to wish them luck, but we definitely want to speak about this particular matter as well, because it's we're talking about hundreds and thousands of houses and apartments and high-rise buildings at the same time. It's not an easy task, but as we all know, once Imran Khan decides to do something, I think that he's going to do it and achieve it as well.
Yeah,
but today I'm going to take I'm going to be on the other side. And that side is that I think that what the government needs to do is probably, rather than people coming into cities which are already developed, I think that the government needs to invest in the areas which they think have the capacity to be an economic hub. For example, you know, within Punjab, I think that there are a lot of different smaller cities who have the capacity to actually probably encompass a larger group of people. And I think that this is something which needs to be done, so that the people who are actually residing in the cities before shouldn't have difficulty. And then for all those people, they should have newer avenues, newer opportunities, because there will be a process of the development. I think that's what
I sort of do agree with you, more or less, because when we're looking at, you know, even Islamabad, let's speak about Islamabad, because I feel like we both can. So many beautiful areas that probably even 5 years before this, they were absolutely, you know, even serene, and they had enough place to even have a beautiful environment to look around as well. But right now they're overcrowded. And if I'm looking at Islamabad probably 10 years down the lane, I don't want the main beautiful areas to be the downtown of the city, right? I mean, so I really hope we're looking forward to actually high-rise buildings, so that we can save the area around it and accommodate 10 to 15 times more people that now are residing on, let's say,
but then imagine, okay, so, you know, even if you're talking about high-rise buildings, I think that we need to talk about the other infrastructure, for example, roads, networks, bicycle lanes and whatnot, because the population of the city is going to go up. I mean, imagine that 3 years before, when I used to come to work, it just took me 16 minutes to come to work from wherever I live. And then now these days, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to 27 minutes. So there's an increase of 10 minutes. Imagine how many more people have actually moved into the city as well, which is definitely causing a lot of trouble. There's a lot of traffic. There are a lot of universities by the roadside as well. Students are parking their cars. I think all of these issues need to be considered. And wherever you go in the Western world, when we speak about that, you know, they cannot actually get a permit to construct until unless they actually go through all of these problems or figure out the solutions. And one of the examples I have is one of my friend who actually moved to UK recently, and he was interested in developing a hotel over there, which it did now after like 6 or 7 years. And, you know, the problem they were facing was that the government was actually telling them that you do not have enough parking space in front and at the back of the hotel, so the hotel cannot be constructed. But then there are other ways around with which you can definitely do that. But I have a very simple question for you. And that is that, you know, since I have been living in a house for all my life, all these years,
The same house?
Yeah, not the same house, but a house, So I think that living in apartments is very different than living in a house, and that too in terms of privacy. And especially people who just got married, please make sure that you do not pick up on apartments, because if you guys are going to be loud, everybody's hearing your story.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so where's the question?
Yeah, so the question is, would you want to be living in apartments or a house?
Well, if it was for myself and only myself, definitely apartment.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, alhamdulillah, the house that we have right now, where my family is living, I absolutely love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we are talking about, the housing scheme in Pakistan, how we should go about it, what it does to the, you know, psychology
and the
of
architecture
the people.
As well.
Absolutely. On my right-hand side, we've been joined by someone who happens to be a real estate analyst. He's none other than Mr. Shafiq Akbar. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you, and I love your pocket scarf. It's fabulous. It's on point as well. And moving on, ladies and gentlemen, alongside Mr. Shafiq, we've actually been joined by somebody who's actually going to let us know how does it actually, you know, how does our brain process information when we're living in an apartment, which is actually designed by an interior designer. I mean, you know, for all of those things which we want in life. She's a clinical psychologist. She's none other than Miss Roma Shahid. Hello, assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Salam. I'm great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's been, I don't know, a year that you've actually been on the show, but thank you very much for coming back as well. But let's get the conversation started.
Okay.
High-rise buildings, and that too so that we can save space for trees.
Well, I think the new initiative by this government, the high-rise buildings, is a very good initiative. But I wouldn't. It's just not an initiative. I think it's something, a solution to a problem.
Need of the hour.
Yeah. The way our population is growing, or the cities are growing, we just don't have any other option but to go vertically and go for high-rise buildings. And it's very good initiative, and the whole world, you talk about Europe, all the other countries, they've been doing it for 40 to 50 years. However, there are a few problems. And the thing is, once we, let's say if you talk about Islamabad, and you were just talking about, I think, living in an apartment, or maybe having high-rise buildings here in Islamabad. Islamabad was planned for 2 million people back then in 1960s. And if you go around Blue Area nowadays, during daytime, you would see that, there's a problem like the parking problem and the traffic problem, and then you talk about the environment and everything. Now, if you are going to have high-rise buildings in Islamabad, which means obviously the population is going to grow, whether the city has the capacity to take that population, have the infrastructural development should be accordingly as well. So the policy, we have to have a policy, and the policy should be inclusive. It should be sort of holistic policy for the cities and for the whole country.
Okay.
And then again, I think that's where we lack, because Pakistan in 1950s used to have housing and settlement. We, in fact, were ahead of US at that time. We used to have housing and settlement as a distinct sector, and that was the only reason we could deliver a city like Islamabad at that time. But now, if you talk about research in the recent history, the last research in real estate was in 2007. Are we, we're talking about the master planning, we're talking about national policies, we're talking about the bylaws. We don't really have them. We have to have national policy for the whole country. Then we have to have master planning for all the cities. And these should be inclusive policies in a way that, what sort of population we can take in, and the infrastructural development obviously should go around there as well. And then the bylaws for the local areas. I think that's what we need to look into as well.
So you're saying high-rise buildings are definitely the need of the hour, and it is the dream, but the realization of the dream is a little questionable?
It's not questionable. Well, the world has realized dreams. If we talk about Dubai, for example, Dubai has got more than...
It started from somewhere, right?
Yeah. In the last 30 years, for example, Dubai, the way it has developed. In Dubai today, you got more than 350 buildings, which are about 40 stories. And in Pakistan, I think, we got only one probably, and that's that two under construction.
Okay.
So, and Dubai is the size of Karachi. So we can have everything in Pakistan. I think, we talk about Pakistan, we say, there are a lot of problems, and probably there are no. I think this is the problem we have. The biggest problem we have is that, the hope. We need to have hope that, there is fix to everything.
We live in the glass half empty.
Yeah. I think what we have to have is, and especially once I see people at the age of like 20 to 30 and then sort of like, a bit disappointed or hopeless.
No, really,
I think,
not really.
Well, is it?
I'm always hopeful.
All right, okay. Well, yeah, no. Yeah, I think that's something which we need to change. In terms of units, for example, you mentioned we need 10 million. We are short of 10 million houses in Pakistan. We want to build 5 million. The backlog, obviously there's a shortage, but in every year, basically, we add to that, and there's 400,000 to 500,000 housing units, which we add to the backlog already, 10 million plus. So we need, obviously, housing. We need housing units. And as I said, high-rise is the only solution to the problem. There are fixes. Obviously, the world has done it. A lot of countries have done it. China, for example, in the last 30, 40 years, how they have progressed. So, yeah, we have to be hopeful and think that it can be done.
Okay, well, that's great. Moving on to Roma. Roma, we will definitely keep talking about how we should go about the high-rise buildings and how that is going to benefit Pakistan and Pakistanis eventually. But looking at the prevalent conditions of the housing that we have, not only in Islamabad, all over the country, I mean, there's not usually a lot of greenery around. For the middle class people, I will honestly have to say, I mean, there are some very limited privileged ones who do have like beautiful lawns and whatnot to their houses, but a lot of people don't. So looking at all these things, I mean, what does that do to the mental health of a person who's living in a house probably with no ventilation, with no sunlight coming in, just a piece of land for the sake of a house? So like, how's the life there?
So
Terrible.
basically housing, true. Housing is one of the crucial aspects that contributes towards a person's mental health. And people with problematic housing are at a higher risk of developing mental health conditions at the same time. Quality housing, secure environment, it all contributes towards a better mental health condition, and it also helps those who are already suffering from a chronic mental problem. As compared to the general population, people with mental health problems are more likely to be living in substantial livings, overcrowded housing, and also in rented apartments as well. So yeah, like problematic housing does affect a person's mental health condition as well. For example, if we're living in a place which is noisy, which is moist or just very damp, right? It is going to contribute to so many physical conditions such as asthma problems or respiratory conditions. It is also going to affect a child's mental conditions in terms of anxiety, depression, lower intellectual abilities. So yeah, definitely housing does contribute towards a person's mental health.
Then I think that the situation is very bleak, ladies and gentlemen, because I have lived in Karachi for 5 years, and after the first 2 years, I actually had to move into an apartment with a lot of my friends who used to study with me in college. And you know, the problem over here, what I think is that Pakistanis are actually not ready to be living in apartments, especially in cities like Lahore and Islamabad. And it's because of the fact, that people over here have no mannerism. And when I talk about mannerism, you know, so what they'll do is that they'll probably clean their own apartments, throw the garbage right in front of somebody else's door, and then that's it. You know, so one way or the other, you're actually entering into the building or going out of the building, you're actually going to hear somebody arguing with somebody else. You know, this is one thing which happens in apartments. And other than that, you know, when we talk about the Western world, now may them be apartments or may them be houses, the smallest or probably the widest or the largest as well. What they do is that they have these free spaces, you know, even within apartments or the outside apartments, they're going to have balconies. And with the smaller houses, they have like lawns, you know, smaller lawns, kitchen gardens and stuff like that. And that too is because of the fact that it has an impact on your mental health, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to build up on that, but after a short break, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And probably we'll be back faster because the producer's in a rush. Let's do it. Good morning.
Stay tuned.
The ancient city of Taxila is the heart of stonework in Pakistan. This art, which has been preserved and practiced for centuries, can be seen on many major landmarks of the country. Notably, the Pietra Dura work in the Lahore Fort's Sheesh Mahal. These stone products take days to complete and require immense precision and skill from the craftsmen. The final products are perfect for souvenirs, gifts and decoration pieces, each depicting the richness of Pakistani culture at its best. Camel skin and ivory craft are trademarks of Multan's handicraft repertoire. Camel skin is cleaned, dried and mounted onto molds which can be of any shape desired. Multicolored lacquer painting is then used to ornament the molds, which in the end bear
Welcome back to World This Morning with Shahzad Khan and Shahzad Hashmi, ladies and gentlemen, where right before Ramzan, we're talking about eco-friendly architecture. And before we went out on a short break, Shahzad was actually talking about, you know, the individual responsibility that we have, not only the architects or the government, right, for facilitating us, but the responsibility that we have of living like humans.
Exactly, and I was sharing my experiences from Karachi, ladies and gentlemen, where I never knew, you know, which are the right areas when I moved to Karachi to probably live in. So, you know, I actually got the opportunity to live in an apartment where there were people doing a lot of miserable stuff to other people, and I don't think that was a good idea, and I had to move out. But then at the same time, Ms. Roma, this is what I wanted to ask, that, you know, the Western world has a concept of having a lot of free spaces or probably open spaces where you can sit down, read a book, have a cup of tea, feel relaxed in your home.
Yep.
Then, but over here in Pakistan, I think even if you're going to get a piece of land which is like 1 inch by 1 inch, we're just going to construct a wall over it and make and feel secure. और दीवार खड़ी कर ली है, अब नहीं कोई आ सकता. You know, so we have a kabza mafia over here too as well.
Right.
I mean, how does it work?
Like, again, it's not just about building a high-rise apartment. It's about the conditions that we are providing within inside the house.
Yeah.
So, for instance, like when you talk about extreme weather conditions, so just imagine living in a high-rise apartment in mid-June when the temperature literally goes up to 40 degrees. So again, talking in terms of mental health conditions, that isn't going to increase your stressors. It's going to get you more angry. And then at the same time, it's going to affect your personal relationships.
Yeah,
you know,
I think that is going to happen too as well. And then talking about that, I think, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to get an architect's point of view over this as well. I mean, all of this heat,
Which
temperature,
we had one.
Sustainable development, first of all, eco-friendly. And, you know, we are lucky that we have been joined by him as well. He was running late, but thank God he's finally on time. He's none other than Mr. Jamshaid Khan. He's a consultant architect. Hello, assalamu alaikum, welcome back.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You are still in time, and it's great to have you. So very quickly, you know, we just want to know, what is sustainable development in terms of high-rise buildings? What is eco-friendly?
It's a very good question, but it's a very large subject.
Yeah.
We cannot compile it in few minutes, but I try my best.
Thank you.
Actually, there are two things. I was listening to you people. One, we are comparing the apartments exist in Pakistan.
Yeah.
But the second thing, we are talking about the designs of the buildings. And third thing, we have to improve our bylaws.
Yeah.
First of all, I appreciate government that government took initiative towards high-rise buildings. First of all, we have to conclude what is sustainable architecture.
Yeah.
First of all, in Islamabad, we are talking about our local area.
Yeah.
Islamabad, we are consuming our land, green acres, by horizontal development.
Right.
For example, in Islamabad, there are 64 sectors in Islamabad.
Okay.
And only one sector based on 32,000 canals. Okay. And only for approximately 3,200 houses.
Yeah.
Or 3,500 houses, we are consuming 32,000 canals. The same people can live in 50 canals in 20-story, 30-story buildings.
But with no
So
lawns in
you-
it, with
so-
no space
so
to park your cars.
With a little idea, we can save thousands of canals in Islamabad, in Pakistan, and we can reduce the cost of living in our own building, in our own apartment.
Yeah.
But the people, you people were talking about there was not a good experience of living in an apartment. It's basically a design and the bylaws.
Okay.
How you are giving green areas, sitting areas, open spaces on each floor.
Yeah.
And you are right about builder. It's also from my side, builder don't allow us to make some open spaces because of
want to make money.
Exactly. Not actually, I would not say
mean, for all
totally
of those-
money. It's a wrong bylaws.
No,
first.
I'll let you know. Even if it's a wrong bylaw, but I've seen it myself, and since I happen to be in construction too as well. So what we do is, for example, if there's a lot of space which we are supposed to, just let it be free. If we're going to construct an apartment over there, it's going to get us millions.
For example, if there is a thing in a bylaw that you have to provide open space on each floor, every
we
floor,
don't
but
have
that
anything
is
of
not
that.
included in your FAR.
Yes.
So it would make something better and would allow to the builder to develop some green spaces on each floor. If you are not giving that kind of opportunity to the people for the developer by bylaws, so you cannot force to the developer make something different and unique from their own money.
Exactly.
So we have to improve, and I request to the people who are in the community of making these bylaws to bring expert peoples to improve these bylaws.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes perfect
So
sense.
it's a matter of policy.
Indeed.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Shafiq, coming on to you, since you are a real estate analyst, I feel like you can tell me. I have two questions for you. First of all, we are definitely, hoping to have all of these changes in Islamabad and Pakistan all together. But speaking of the people over here, first of all, are they ready for the change? Will they be willing to change their lifestyles entirely? Right? We're not used to this. Number two, speaking of Islamabad specifically, because it is more prone to seismic activities, are we ready for high-rise buildings?
Well, the first question is to do with the culture.
Yeah.
And once you talk about sustainable, there's sort of three aspects to it. You've got economic, social,
Yeah.
and then environmental. Now, what you're talking about is the social aspect of
Right.
it. And my friend there, obviously, he doesn't want to live in an apartment.
Yeah, never.
Okay. I think it has to change.
Right.
It has changed in Karachi.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has to change in Islamabad as well. And this is how we sort of have these intelligent policies and how we implement that. And at the same time, as Jamshaid mentioned, we call it FAR, it's a technical term, floor area ratio,
Okay.
like how much a developer can construct on a particular block. So as far as the bylaws are concerned, if there are some sort of conditions that you have to have green spaces, or the area, the coverage area, rest of the area, how you have to develop. So yes, it can change. We can have green areas within our apartments as well. The world has done it.
Probably we have lifts where our cars go up as well. I want my car to be right in front of
There's
me
a
at all
car
times.
vending machine that
Well,
exists. We'll talk about it.
Yeah,
But
well, that's the economic aspect of it. If people can afford, then yes,
Yeah.
of course they can do that. But obviously, considering Pakistan, we have middle class, especially here in Islamabad as well. So what we can afford, and obviously, so you can't afford. Everybody can't afford to buy a house here in Islamabad. So you have to have apartments, and people have started moving into apartments.
Okay.
As far as Islamabad is concerned, again, if I come to the sustainability of it, the town planning or the master plan of Islamabad, as I said, Islamabad was planned for 2 million.
Right.
It is
2 million
exceeded
residents.
by
Yeah,
far.
and we are just about there, by the way.
Okay.
So the areas, where the high-rise buildings can be built, this is perfectly fine. Obviously, the population is going to go up.
Okay.
For that, we need to have sustainable model. As I mentioned earlier, Dubai, for example, has more than 350 buildings, which are 40 floors, above 40 floors. Now, you don't really see, the traffic is very organized within Dubai.
Okay.
It is to do with the bylaws and the planning.
Okay.
So what we have to have is a sort of national policy for the whole country, and then the master planning for each city You mentioned earlier that the small cities should expand. People should. We have to make them the economic hubs so that obviously the population by the end of the day there's an economic aspect to it as well. So we need to plan. I think the most important thing is that we need to plan. We need to have a national policy for the urbanization or the urban policies or the master planning of the cities, and then we need to identify which areas need to be developed in which way. And this is how
I understand that. That is perfectly a great answer. But I'm talking about, how Islamabad and then the north specifically is very prone to earthquakes and similar activities. And then although we do have like hardly 1 or 2 high-rise buildings already, we don't even have earthquake pendulums. I mean, the material that we're using, it's not even safe. Almost every other month we're coming across a video of a building falling off. Unfortunately, it's sad, yes. So are we ready for that kind of stuff?
And imagine, I'm sorry that I have to barge in as well, and imagine that, ladies and gentlemen, even for 2 million people over in Islamabad, there's not enough water. So imagine if we're going to construct high-rise buildings, I think that we'll probably be all using sanitizers as well, where the population is going to increase. There's no water, there's no supply of water, there's no water underground, the bores are actually getting dry.
Yeah.
So why are we even thinking about this?
So
I think.
Okay, let's start with him and then you can carry on.
Sorry, Jamshaid. Well, the thing is, again, it is to do with planning. I've spent most of my life outside Pakistan. Now, as far as the things which you mentioned, a lot of it is to do with planning. 80% of Islamabad, especially the main roads, does not have bylaws. It's been 56 years.
Okay.
Now, again, for water, there could be a lot of alternative arrangements. This is a problem which whole of Pakistan has.
Yes.
So what we do need to do is we need to have inclusive planning for the cities and the country as a whole.
Okay.
And
And I would like to add that you are specifically talking about safe load factors.
Yeah.
When we are going towards high-rise building, we have to consider safe load factors. Are there the infrastructure roads are allowing us for that kind of load of traffic?
Okay.
And the sewerage system is allowing us. So these are the not major issues. We can handle them. But what we are saving and what we are going to sustain in our society, that is land.
Exactly.
And regarding
Ladai sari land ki aur-
yes. If you are talking about 40-story building in Islamabad, you are actually dividing the plot price in 40 apartments, in 40 layers. So it will decrease the price of the apartment and allow the people who are in average income can live in Islamabad in their own houses.
Amazing.
That's most important. And the water sewerage we can develop, we can improve these systems.
Exactly, and we'll definitely have to do another show because we're running out of time, but there's one more aspect or probably a stigma attached to living in apartments or buying an apartment, that is that God forbid, and since we live in a seismic zone as well, so God forbid if there's going to be probably earthquakes or any this kind of activity. So what people say is that God forbid if the building falls, which we've had an example in 2005, the Margaret Towers fell down. A lot of lives were lost, first of all, and then second, okay, so they do not have a house now. So who's owning that land?
But I would like to add
very quickly,
because it was not a high rise, it was a low rise.
Even low rise fell down. What do you think high rise will do to us?
It is not about the design and the structure. It is about the bad design and bad structure. So you cannot say that buildings are going to fall because it is high rise.
No, I'm saying that buildings fall because the builders do not put in the right materials.
Now the people are following, the consultants are following the international codes and standards. That is not that kind of thing 20 years back.
So things have changed now?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. With a smile, please. With a smile, yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here early in the morning. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. This was Mr. Shafiq Akbar, Jamshaid Khan and Roma Shahid, ladies and gentlemen. Well, towards the end, tomorrow we are starting with Ramzan. Super excited. We are definitely going to be having our regular transmissions, but we will be specifically talking about Ramadan and its, blessings that we have.
Yes, that's great. So, ladies and gentlemen, please write to us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of
Well This Morning.
On Twitter.
Well This Morning without a G.
On Daily Motion and YouTube.
Also Well This Morning.
And this fabulous repeat's going to be at
5 past 11 p.m. tonight.
Till the next time, 1, 2, 3.
Good morning.